We've been working on getting this boat ready for the future for 2 years now. While we're at it, we should also look into the most future-proof thing one can do: electrification. A quick quote tells us that will set us back 100,000 euros, but it can be done for way less. By the end of this video, we'll have figured out if we can get it down to a price that fits our budget. My name is Gijs, and this is my dad, and this is Schoener Tijgerhaai. 2.5 years ago, we started a major rebuild to get ready for new adventures, and we're sharing the process with you. Subscribe to stay tuned. We are trying to become less dependent on fuel, mostly diesel. We've already installed some solar panels in the beginning of the rebuild, allowing us to do almost everything on the battery-powered inverter. For heavier use, however, like the propulsion, bow thruster and the future galley equipment, we still need to start the diesel engine or generator. Which is a shame really, because even during the rebuild, the solar panels deliver more than we use and than the current 24 volts batteries can store. So they just switch to very low power float charging, and the rest of the potential energy is lost. Another thing that we lack, which is sailboat specific, is regenerative power from the propeller. This is quite a big boat with a big fixed propeller, meaning that we cannot feather the propeller blades to put them in low drag mode. Which in turn means that when we're sailing at a cruise speed of 6 knots, the propeller shaft is turning at a considerable amount of force, which is currently not used for anything. If we could turn a part of that rotation into regenerative charge for the batteries, balancing speed loss and power delivery, and store it in a battery, that would make a big difference in how much diesel we use for energy consumption. A diesel engine can't do that. For that we need an electric motor, alternator or a generator on the propeller shaft. Going full electric and banning diesel completely is not very wise, I think. If the batteries run low, if we have to use propulsion for longer periods, or if the batteries break down, help is not always nearby while cruising the ocean. A battery that would allow us to electrically motor around for days on end would become so expensive, heavy and space consuming that that's out of the question already. 3 or 4 hours on cruising speed is more likely, for getting in and out of port, raising the sails and that kind of stuff. Of course, with that size battery we can already run all the household appliances for weeks, especially combined with the solar panels on the roof. If we have to use propulsion for a longer period, I think we can't get around to starting up a diesel generator to either charge the batteries or power the electric motor directly. A fuel cell could be a solution, but those are really not yet in a development stage that they are being mass produced for general consumers to buy. Maybe in the future they can replace one of the generators. There are companies like ePropulsion, Torqeedo and many others that offer complete solutions for a boat this size, consisting of a 100 kW motor and a 100 kWh battery pack and all the additional required parts. The price? Around 100,000 euros, or a bit more in dollars. I wasn't able to get a specific quote with the price of each component individually, but I think it can be divided roughly into 3. A third of the price is likely to be the electric motor. A normal 100 kW motor is not that expensive, but these companies offer lightweight permanent magnet motors with rare earth metals. That makes them very expensive. Another third is the battery pack, which consists of around 24 volts lithium ion batteries to get the required 500 volts DC to power the motor. And the last third is all the other parts, like the charger, inverters, cables, fuses, etc. But as is usually the case with fully prepared off-the-shelf systems, not having to use your own brain means somebody else is using theirs and you're just paying them to do all the figuring out. A problem with these systems is also that you might have to let go some of your wishes, because although these solutions are usually customized to your wishes, not everything is possible. For example, in the system that ePropulsion offered us, the electric motor can only be powered via the batteries, but not from the diesel generator directly. On top of that, they only offered a battery charger of maximum 12 kilowatts, which means in practice, if the battery dies, we can only propel the ship with the 12 kilowatts, because that's the amount that we can get from the generator through the batteries to the electric motor. What would be better for us is to turn our current main engine into a generator, so that if the situation requires it, we can run diesel electric, full power on the electric motor until we run out of diesel. The alternative is of course figuring everything out yourself. Finding the right parts, have them communicate with each other and try to get everything to work. The disadvantage of that is that you will probably be reinventing the wheel. And one must be careful that the safety, reliability and overall quality of the system does not suffer from your limited skill set. The advantage is that the system can be completely adapted to your wishes, most likely for a much lower price. And above all, if you build the system from start to finish, you will know the whole system from top to bottom, which really helps troubleshooting and makes you independent from expensive commissioning and service engineers that have to come on board or log into your system remotely. Easy choice, I would say. Trying not to overestimate our skills, but I think we can do it ourselves. Now it just comes down to choosing all the individual parts, starting with the electric motor. Our initial plan was to shove the diesel engine to the side and install an electric motor directly on the propeller shaft, without a reduction gear. This is because a reduction gear has gears and oil and rotating parts, and it lowers the overall efficiency. The propeller turns at a maximum of 500 RPM, so we would need an electric motor that could do that as well. The one E-Propulsion offers can do that, but that's a lightweight permanent magnet motor, so it's a bit expensive. So I looked at normal electric motors with the same power, both air-cooled and water-cooled. It turns out their weight comes in over 1700 kilos, or 1.7 tons, where the permanent magnet one weighs a mere 190 kilos. We will not be able to get 1700 kilograms installed without a lot of demolishing and heavy equipment. The reason that they are so heavy is that we need a motor with a low RPM. Not to get too technical, a fast turning electric motor is lighter because power is a multiplication of torque and RPM. So a higher RPM means less torque for the same power. Less torque means less copper is needed in the electric motor, and that means less weight. So let's look at plan B. Leave the reduction gear in place and get a faster, lighter motor. The reduction in the gearbox is 4.5 to 1, meaning we could get an electric motor with a maximum speed of up to 2250 RPM. That would mean we would keep the efficiency loss from the gearbox, which was not designed for efficiency, but rather for longevity and toughness. These electric motors are still more than 1000 kilos, which is a bit much for us to handle, but just looking at the price, we can get a 100 kilowatts electric motor and drive that can regenerate from the propeller shaft for around 20,000 bucks. We could also leave the engine in place, but replace the gearbox for one with an electric motor attached to it, like this one from Transfluid, turning the existing diesel engine into a hybrid drive. This system has multiple functions, like normal diesel propulsion, electric propulsion, generator-only function to charge the batteries, or a combination of the three. This has the advantage that we don't need an electric motor that is as strong as 100 kilowatts, because if we need all that, we can just start the main diesel engine. The downside is that Transfluid offers the complete installation, making it again quite expensive, around 100k for the whole system. A final option is to leave the main engine and the gearbox in place and install an electric motor next to the propeller shaft and connect it with the chain or belt drive, which would also turn it into a hybrid drive similar to the last one, but we get to choose all the parts ourselves. We could then just get an electric motor that is strong enough for cruising speed, which is around 35 kilowatts for us. That is of course much lighter and easier to install. If we do that, the price of an electric motor with drive will go down to 10,000 euros. Or we could get a low mileage used electric car motor, which is even lighter. The ones that have around 35 kilowatts continuously can deliver around 200 kilowatts peak for a short period, and short bursts of power are very useful during maneuvering. And we won't need to move the entire main engine to the side, which is quite a job by itself. We kind of have to remember that propeller shaft regeneration is the main goal, and being able to silently motor around is just a bonus. That brings us to battery options. Most of the electric motors at the size we're looking at are working with currents in the range of 300 to 800 volts DC, similar to the voltage range of electric cars. So we're not looking at good old-fashioned lead acid batteries, or the current go-to brand Victron, with lithium batteries of 12, 24 or 48 volts. Victron uses lithium iron phosphate batteries, which are very safe, not the most expensive, and have a pretty long life. But there are other lithium techniques that are worth exploring before choosing the right battery for the ship. For that, we are looking at 4 properties, which are energy density in watt-hours per kilogram, cycle life, which is the amount of times the battery can be charged from 0 to 100 and still keep at least 80% of its original energy storage, safety, which is mostly based on fire safety and abuse tolerance, although a big part of that also comes from the battery management system, and of course the cost price. There are 3 lithium battery chemistries that are currently used on boats. Starting with a pretty promising one, lithium titanium oxide, or lithium titanate, which has a very low energy density, but it's probably the safest, and it has a really long lifetime. It can also charge very fast, but that's not what we intend to do, so never mind that. Its downside is that it's still somewhat in development, so it has only been used on heavy machinery and industrial storage, and it's not very widely available and thus quite expensive. Opposite of that, there is nickel manganese oxide, which is currently the most used battery in electric cars, so it's pretty easy to find and not very expensive. The reason for the use in electric cars is probably the pretty high energy density, low cost and good safety rating, although it's not as safe as LTO, and the cycle life is also a lot lower, kind of mid-range if we compare all types of lithium chemistries. And then there's the one in the middle, lithium iron phosphate. It's quite similar to LTO, just a tiny bit worse on all properties, but at a much lower cost. And the other thing where it outshines LTO is energy density, but only just. So if we compare that to NMC, an LFP battery is still almost twice the size and weight of an NMC battery for the same energy. The cost and safety aspect probably make that LFP is getting more and more popular in electric cars, specifically the ones on the lower end with less range. Availability is a big thing, of course, so the final choice will probably be between the last two, nickel manganese oxide and lithium iron phosphate. The fact that they are used in cars so much and that electric cars are popping out of the ground like mushrooms means mass production, and that means low cost. At some point, after maybe 10 years, we will have to replace the batteries. Maybe by that time lithium titanate will be developed further and become more widely available and cheaper. For now, we can get an NMC car battery pack for the ship for around 12,000 bucks, and a set of LFP batteries for a bit over that, 14,000 bucks. Adding it all up, we can get a motor, drive and battery for around 20 to 25,000 euros. And with all the extra stuff we need like chargers, battery management system and all that, we'd get around 30,000 bucks. Which is a lot of money, but only a third of the price of a system like the one from Propulsion or Transfluid. One important thing that we must not forget is that it is supposed to make our lives in the future cheaper, not having to burn diesel for electricity and or propulsion. Filling the bunker tanks completely with around 6 tons of diesel would set us back around 10,000 euros. How fast will we consume that? Not sure really. That depends completely on how many people are on board, where we're going and if we're in a hurry or not. But there's no doubt about it that we will reduce our fuel consumption with a system like this. And it gives us quiet sailing. And we can store more solar power in the batteries. And we won't have to use the generator for 3-phase electricity, so both the generator and the main diesel will get less running hours, so they need less maintenance. In that aspect, it's quite a no-brainer actually. I'll just have to scrape together the final pennies of my savings and sell the previous project boat at some point. And maybe start working a bit more side jobs, but that's just details. Anyways, what do you think? Any suggestions or solutions that I've missed? We'd like to hear from you down in the comment section. This is all for now. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.